of disaster doesn't and it did not make 45's Iran policy a success. The consequences of 45's decision last Friday to order the assassination of Iranian General Soleimani have not been as disastrous as many observers initially feared, leading some of 45 supporters, including his biggest fan himself, to describe the events of this week as a victory for the squatter and his Iran policy, which it wasn't. That 45 was able to win praise for failing to provoke a catastrophic war is a sign of just how low he has set the bar for success. Taking a broader view, however, his strategy for containing Iran remains a failure even on its own terms. 45 ran for squatter in 2016, pledging to undo all the work that the Obama administration had done to get Iran to verifiably halt its nuclear weapons program, calling the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action the worst deal ever negotiated, and proposing to pull out of the deal and reimpose crippling economic sanctions on Iran and use that leverage to negotiate a better deal. A campaign of maximum pressure he and the Iran hawks and his administration argued would deter Iran from continuing its proxy wars and sponsorship of terrorism throughout the Middle East, and it would force Iran back to the negotiating table to sign a more stringent nuclear deal and perhaps even help foment a popular uprising against the Iranian government, leading to regime change from within. Ever since 45 kicked off this new strategy by ditching the JCPOA in 2018, it has not only failed to achieve its goals, but in some respects had the opposite of its intended effect. Instead of tamping down its regional proxy activities in response to 45's pressure campaign, Iran stepped them up, though in fairness they had not abated whether the deal was in place either. Rather than catapult to Washington's demands for a new capitulate to Washington's demands for a new nuclear deal and some sanctions of relief, Iran has evaded sanctions and resumed some of its nuclear activity, including reopening its Fordo uranium enrichment center on Wednesday as part of its reaction to Soleimani's assassination. In other words, while 45 sanctions have taken a severe economic toll on the Iranian people, the government is more active in regional conflicts and closer to resuming its nuclear weapons activity today than it was before 45 scuttled the nuclear deal. Tensions between Washington and Tehran are at a historic high, and the risk of open war, which 45 has repeatedly stated he wishes to avoid, has increased. When it comes to bringing Iran to heel and preventing violence, 45 strategy is plainly failing on both counts. For the Iran hawks in the 45 administration, those failures were all to the good, as they would eventually frustrate the squatter until he felt he had no choice but to launch a full-scale war in Iran. For these officials, the escalatory measure of killing Soleimani was intended to backfire and snowball into direct conflict. Even that dangerous ambition does not appear to be in the offing. However, as Iran's response, a barrage of ballistic missiles at Iraqi bases hosting U.S. forces resulting in no casualties appears to have successfully shown force against the enemy and avoided providing 45 with the callous belly. Insofar as 45 strategy was bearing any fruit, it was in stirring political unrest in Iran. In recent months, the country has political unrest at its greatest scale since the revolution of '79. Sparked by rising gasoline prices that were in part of a consequence of 45 sanctions, Soleimani's death, however, has presented the regime with an opportunity to muffle opposition and rally the country around a murdered hero and against an American aggressor. While many Iranians despised Soleimani and much of the morning was ginned up by the regime, the reaction to his death, Farsi-speaking Twitter, was much more negative than positive. Time and time again, Iranians have proven that concern for the integrity of their country comes before their opinions about the government, and they will back even a regime they hate against a belligerent foreign empire whose squatter threatens to bomb their cultural heritage to smithereens. Killing Soleimani has not been a strategic win for 45 either. However, his sycophants try to spin it. It was an unnecessary provocative way to combat Iran's regional influence, which Soleimani was already squandering on his own, and it would make it much harder for I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Iranian politicians, if there are any left after this, to make the case for reopening talks with the U.S. It has harmed our alliances in the Middle East and Europe, which suits Russia just fine. It has just perhaps irreparably damaged our relations with Iraq and could force American troops to withdraw from that country, leaving it in the hands of Iran. and setting back the effort to clear out the remnants of the Islamic State. In some sense, it is it is overly generous to say that 45 has an Iran strategy at all. The administration appears not to have thought through the potential downside risks of its plan of action and to have no contingency plans for when the things go awry. In that respect, Soleimani's assassination and its aftermath keenly illustrate a fundamental contradiction that causes 45's foreign policy initiatives to fail. He believes that with great power comes great leverage. Because the U.S. is by far the most powerful country in the world, we should get whatever we want from everyone else all the time, which doesn't work that way. The fact that this is not true keeps tripping Trump 45 up. Here he has run into the situation in which he has all the hard power in the world, but little ability to influence Iran's behavior. Escalating tensions and threatening war have not succeeded at browbeating Tehran into compliance. They have only encouraged new forms of intransigence. This path does not lead to a peaceful resolution of the crisis he has created. 45 alone will decide how this chapter of the American-Iranian conflict ends. He can make good on his threat to attack Iran on its own side while launching a full-scale war, or he can offer the Iranians a framework for a new nuclear deal that they can actually fully accept, which would probably look similar to the deal he tore up in 2018, as long as both options are anathema to the squatter. We will remain locked in a frozen conflict, neither going to war nor making peace. For the time being, that may be the best that we can hope for.